Well, welcome to another episode of the Dead Presidents Club, where we talk unfiltered and unashamedly about all things money. Money is just a game, and so we want you to learn the rules so that you too can become an unrivaled master of that game. Today, we got Amanda Edens with us, which I'm really excited about. Amanda is the founder of the Northern California-based real estate brokerage called the Edens Group. Amanda and her husband Scott have been personal friends of mine for, probably close to 10 years now. I think we've known each other. It's been a long time. Yeah. Amanda is smart. She's driven. She's hilariously outrageous, which is one of my favorite things about her. And she's endlessly generous with her time and resources. I was actually thinking, Amanda, before I let you introduce, I was thinking about when we first moved to Redding. Little story just to kind of give you a sense of who Amanda is. When we first moved to Redding, we were looking for a house. And I don't know, maybe you remember, were you in transition or were you an active realtor at the time? Or was that when you were getting started again? I can't remember.
I was transitioning. Transitioning from Southern California to Northern California.
Yeah, because I don't think I even at the time realized you were a real estate agent. Mm-hmm. And we were having a hard time finding a house. Yeah. And Jacqueline found one off the market. Yeah. And for whatever reason, the seller just hated real estate agents. Like, they refused to work with agents. They're like, hey, we'll sell you the house. We'll give you a good price, but we're not dealing with agents. We're not paying fees. We're not doing any of that. And I don't even remember how it came up, but Amanda jumped in and she's like, well, I'll just take care of all of that for you. And like, you did the contract and you got me connected with the escrow office and you did it all for us for free. And I didn't even know, we bought houses before, but I had no idea how to facilitate any of that at the time. And so I think about that and I'm like, that's the pulse of really who Amanda is. It's just eternally kind, generous. And she's been a big part of our business as we've grown in the real estate space. She's my go-to agent here in town. And so I'm really excited to have you here. And
excited to be here.
Yeah, let's talk about all things Amanda and whatever else comes up. But why don't you give us a little backstory? So tell us a little bit about yourself. How'd you get into the game? Give us a little 2-minute bio.
2 minutes. Okay, let's go. I don't know if it's really getting into the game for me. It was something I was kind of born into. My dad in the 80s owned about 85 to 90-ish properties.
Oh, wow.
And that's how he met my mom, actually. He was her landlord and went to go serve an eviction.
Oh, my gosh.
Knocked on her door.
Okay, hold on. Your dad went to evict your mom.
Yeah.
And that's how they met.
That's how they met.
Holy smokes. Okay. Yeah. So Carrie, so he goes to the door, then what happens?
So she opens the door and obviously like angel sing, like hair blowing in the breeze. She's just young and beautiful. And he asked her out and he was like, hey, let's work something out.
Oh, okay. We'll just go ahead and leave that to we'll just leave that to the imagination on what they worked out. I don't need to know about all that.
Well, needless to say, they got married 6 months later. And he was a very prominent name in Southern California in real estate.
Wow.
And as a broker, and he eventually ended up getting into title insurance. But I grew up with that. I grew up in the world and I knew the language. I knew the processes.
It's probably safe to say that really you're the product of an eviction gone south, yes. At some level.
No, an eviction gone well. Wait.
Yes.
No, wait, it didn't go well because she got to stay.
Oh, so. Well, it didn't go well for him. It went great for her. And here you are. And now we all win.
Yeah.
So you've been in it. You grew up in it.
Yeah.
Your dad was in title. Your dad, obviously. So then, when did you actually transition from being a kid of a real estate mogul into actually getting involved yourself?
When I was 18, I just had my twin boys and I was like, okay, it's time, because you can't get your license till you're 18.
Right.
So I was waiting to turn 18 to do that and get married. That's a whole nother story. So I ended up getting my license a little bit after I turned 19 and just jumped right into it.
In Southern California?
Southern California.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was that like?
It was tough. It was really hard. I joined a bigger company and they didn't really have a lot of training set up. And I ended up struggling a lot for a few years and had to waitress, graveyard shifts at the same time. And getting into real estate your first couple of years is tough
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, so what year was that when you were, well, I'm going to make you say how old you are basically, but
I'm 41.
41.
I'm not afraid of my age.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Well, you don't look it either, so that
Thank
works. But so 41, so you were 18, so just about 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So what was that? 2000?
2003.
2003. So what was that? Because you're coming, I mean, you're starting like before things kind of started to get a little crazy, right?
Yeah,
So
that was a fun ride.
yeah. So talk me through that. So you got started in 03.
Mm-hmm.
You were a grinder for a couple of years, which is
Yeah.
a story of many, many, many agents, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then what?
So I really just worked my sphere of influence. Like I reached out to friends and family, and my dad really helped me out a lot in getting started. And my first sale was to my sister and her husband.
Okay.
And that I fumbled my way through it, and just learned as much as I could. I don't learn unless I can do.
Sure.
So so that was a fun experience for me. And so I just slowly, went from selling my sister a house, and then she had a friend at work who needed to buy a house, so I started working with her. So kind of like word of mouth. I didn't really promote myself very much.
Sure.
And just fumbled my way through the first few years until 2006 happened.
Wow. So, because you kind of, if I remember the story correctly, and correct me if I'm wrong, because you kind of like, I know you struggled the first couple of years, really had to grind, but then you kind of popped off for a while, right? You had a couple of years where things went really, really well. Was that before or after 2008?
That was just before. So,
okay.
So I was in the midst of that, and I think I was making between $40,000 and $50,000 a month.
Wow.
Closing transactions, and
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That's huge.
It was huge. Yeah. And Scott and I ended up buying a house. Which is so dumb. Oh my gosh. We bought a house, just a normal, everyday house for $710,000.
Wow. Where at?
In Southern California, Laverne,
okay.
California. Yeah.
Okay.
And then 2008 happened.
Mm-hmm.
And we were dumb, and we didn't save a penny of it. We were spender. I'm a spender. He's a saver. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't get to tell me what to do.
Okay.
So
we'll unpack that later.
Well, thank you. We kind of like blew through it, and we're young.
Sure.
And, I'm in my mid-20s making ridiculous amounts of money and not knowing what to do with it. And, what do you do when you get money? You spend it.
Right.
And not on good fun things, not on good, sustainable things.
Yeah.
So 2008 happened, and it was actually just before. I had 9 houses in escrow at the time. And I was just driving back to the office to write another offer, and I get a phone call. And it's my broker saying, hey, this bank is closing, and this bank is closing, and this bank is closing. These are falling out. And I'm like, what do you mean? Banks don't close?
Right.
That doesn't happen.
Right.
And then it ended up, all 9 of them ended up canceling and falling out because the buyers couldn't qualify anymore, and the economy tanked. And
so you literally went from a $500,000 a year income earner, which has got to be the 1% of realtors, right?
Yeah.
Like that's the top 1%.
Well, back then, that's what everybody was making.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
Back then, okay, I'm not going to say everybody. In my world,
sure.
In my group of friends,
successful realtors,
right? That's what we were all doing.
Yeah.
It was easy. It was easy.
So then, I mean, because here's the interesting part about this, because I've heard this story a dozen times, because it's actually pretty common in real estate world, right? Like, so are all of your friends that were in the game, did they have similar experiences where they were making tons of money, spending it as fast as they made it, and then 2008 hit? Are most of the people you were working with at that time, did they have the same kind of experience?
They did, yeah. And so everybody who I was in connection with back then, they're no longer agents now.
Wow.
None of them made it.
None
of them, not one.
Not a single one.
Yeah.
So you're the Lone Ranger.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy. So what was the period of time between that first phone call, like, hey, ABC Bank is closing, and like all 9 transactions being dead?
A week.
7 days.
Yeah. Or less, actually.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It was immediate. It was instant and immediate. It's over.
Wow. And then from there, nothing.
From there, yeah, nothing was really happening. You couldn't get a buyer qualified. It was done.
Wow.
And I think, after my husband and I had just bought our house, I think 2 months before that.
Oh my gosh.
And we had a house payment of $7,000 a month that we could no longer make.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Stressful.
That was a huge stress in our lives. Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah. We ended up short selling it for $350 and moving to Texas.
You moved to Texas? I didn't know that.
Yeah, we lived in Texas for 3 years.
Okay, we got a lot to cover that I didn't know. But okay, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So Here's the most painful question. What was that $700,000 house worth today? Do you know? Have you looked it up?
I have not looked it up.
Oh, good. Don't. It'll probably hurt.
I'm guessing probably between 7 and 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so you don't think it's gone like through like?
No.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I don't. Southern California market's so different than here. I'd have to research and look into it, but I'm guessing it's between 7 and 8 though.
See, one of my favorite and least favorite things to do. So we bought. I had a similar situation, not quite as detrimental, but I bought my first house in 2007, like 6 months. But I think I closed in like November of 2007, something like that. And by April, I got my tax assessed value. I bought a townhome. It was $252,000 in Mill Creek, Washington, which at that time was like a steal. Like we felt great about it. I was 19. I felt like I was a rock star. By April, I got my tax assessed value at $89,000. I had a very similar situation. Yeah. I was able to hold on because I had a job. I worked in banking through 2008, which was a whole different type of ride. But all of that to be said, we were able in the, post 2008, we were able to pick up a short sale from probably someone similar to your situation, right? They bought this nice home. They had to short sell it. We got it for like, I don't know, 300,000, I think. And one of the things I hate doing, but I still do like every year at least, is I go back and I look up that house because we sold it about a year and a half later. When my wife and I moved to Mexico, we sold it. I think we got it for like just over 300, and we sold it. That was in like 2009, and we sold it in like 2010 or 11, like not long after, for like 450. Wow. And we thought we won the lotto. Like, it was like, we couldn't believe it. We made all this money. Yeah. I think that house just sold last time I looked for 1.2 million. And so it's like my favorite / least favorite thing. Like, it's like, everybody's like, what's your biggest regret? And I'm like, I wish I never sold any real estate. The other thing that's interesting is the townhome. So we kept the townhome through all the craziness. Every single unit, with the exception of ours, short sold or foreclosed over the course of the next couple of years. Yeah. We just got brutalized. Like, it was just it was almost like a secondary market crash, because it was like the market crash. And then when everybody foreclosed and short sold around me, all the comps just crushed my value. Yep. We sold it 10 years later to the month for $2,100 more than we paid for it. It took us 10 years to get back, but now that house is worth, or that townhome is worth like 500. Yeah. And so we, again, wished we would have held it. But all of that to be said, I'm curious for you to go back and look at that house. It's like pain. It's like pain, but I like love it. It's like, I don't know why I do this.
I'm curious now too. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, I know. Well, enjoy your regret. Well, let's talk. I want to talk to you kind of about the market, what's happening. Love to hear more of the story. I'd love to hear kind of what even like Dad's doing and that whole story, because I know that's a crazy story too. But before we do that, let's jump in. I'm going to try doing this new section where we answer questions from people. So I've got a couple of questions of people, mostly on social media, that have written in and asked questions. And so let's answer a few together.
Okay.
All right.
Miller.
Let's see what we got. All right. So, this one's interesting. This could be also an agree, disagree. So it's okay. You may not agree with me. The first person wrote in, you keep saying that my house is not an asset. The house that they're referring to, the house they own. How is my house not an asset when it grows in value? So I guess maybe the first question is, agree or disagree, your house, your primary home that you live in, is not an asset?
I agree 100%.
Okay. So talk to me.
So, it's not an asset because you live there. Okay. And it's a liability because you've got to make payments on it every month, not just the mortgage, but the utilities and the insurances and taxes and all of that.
100% agree. Yeah. And a lot of people I'm taking fire for this on social media right now.
I know, I've seen it.
Yeah. Because a lot of people don't, for me, it's not like, if we're hung up on whether or not like it's an asset or a liability, we're missing the point. Right. The point of the game of money is to create things or to acquire things that create cash flow, that earn me income. So for me, the simple definition of an asset versus a liability is, an asset makes me money every month. Yep. A liability costs me money every month. Yep. And I had somebody hit me recently and they're like, well, I pay money to my 401k every month. And my 401k is an asset, not a liability. And I'm like, well, first of all, it's not a bill. Like, that's a contribution.
It's a voluntary thing,
right? And secondarily, I've never heard of anybody foreclosing on a 401k. Like the reality is that I could have well, I mean, let's take the story that you just told. You bought a home, $700,000, probably got a buy on it at the time. Maybe it had a little bit of equity, and then overnight, 300,000 of it goes away.
Yeah.
Like that's the volatility of it. And now if you had that same house, in 2007, let's say that your mortgage was $7,000 like you talked about, but it was a rental. And I don't know what rents go for in that market, but let's just pretend that you could get $7,000 a month in rent for that same house. Well, it doesn't really matter what happens to the value, right? Because ultimately the value is, or the payment is being covered by the rent. And I get to wait it out. And that's why I think it's interesting to go back and look at values. But so that's the answer to the question. And Amanda agrees, she's a realtor, which is actually pretty uncommon. That's like an unconventional. Most realtors really hate it when I say that out loud, because part of the value prop is like buy a house and you're going to earn money and grow your net worth. What I say as a caveat is that every house has the potential to become an asset, right? Maybe you house hack, right? You can rent out a room or build, like what I'm doing at my primary residence right now. I built a shop. We put a 2-bedroom apartment above it. We're going to rent out the 2-bedroom apartment. It's going to offset the cost of my mortgage. Now my property is becoming more of an asset than it is a liability.
Right.
I have hundreds of thousands of dollars in equity in my home, but if I can't touch it or realize it or cash flow it, that is not an asset to me. So that's the answer. Amanda agrees. Moving on. This one's an interesting one. So this was the comment. Opinion, please. I'm 63 years old. My company got sold, so the 401k has to be transferred out. The new owners do not offer a 401k match, and I don't want anything to do with the stock market anymore. Amen. I have approximately $95,000 in the account. What should I do? She also added, I'm very interested in gold and silver. What are your thoughts? So to be fair, I had the advantage of doing a little bit of research before I got here, and Amanda didn't. So I've got some data on gold and silver. But overall, let's hear your thoughts. I got $95,000. Yep. I'm sick of the stock market, but it's in a retirement account. What do I do?
Invest into real estate. Cash it out.
Okay.
Put it as a down payment on a duplex.
Okay.
And make money that way.
So let's talk through the numbers on that, because I think I agree. Now, you keep in mind, you're listening to 2 real estate people, right? So there is a little bit of a bias. I mean, there's a bazillion other things you could potentially do that would work. But let's talk through the real estate option. So first and foremost, if you've got to roll it out of a 401k, there is an option, which I'm not sure if you knew this or not. I just learned about it. I didn't know until maybe 6 months ago. But there is an option to convert a 401k or an IRA retirement account, an individual retirement account, into what's called a self-directed IRA. And when you put it into a self-directed IRA, you have the option through what's called a custodian to invest directly into real estate assets tax-free, just like a retirement account. Did you know this?
I had no idea.
So I just learned about this semi-recently. And the big difference here, obviously, is if she cashes in her 401k, which, by the way, I cashed in my 401k last year. I'm not 63, so I'm not exactly in the same boat, but I am in the same boat going like, I'm done with the market. The market's too volatile for me. I have a general rule. I don't invest in things I don't understand. And I cannot understand what's going on in the market. And I've got a financial services background. So if I don't understand it, I don't know how most people are choosing to do this, at scale. And so I cashed it in. I paid the fees, I paid the taxes, and I threw it all into real estate. This was before I learned about this custodial option. So I learned all about it. And literally the way that it works is it's a third-party custodian. It's required. So they have to basically manage. And you can transfer that self-directed IRA into their custodial care or oversight. And then they facilitate whatever real estate transactions you want to do on your behalf. There are a couple of requirements. Go ahead.
No, I'm just going to say that's so interesting. I had no idea.
It's super interesting. And it's been a game changer for some people that have been asking me for how they can get into real estate, but they don't have cash. They've got retirement accounts.
They do have cash.
They have cash. Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting. So there's a few requirements, and you'd want to get with a custodian, a CPA, and whatever to figure out all the rules. But the high level requirements are that you or any immediate member of your family cannot benefit directly from the property in terms of use. So that means that I can't live in it. I can't occupy it. I can't use it as a vacation rental.
Mm-hmm.
I can't do anything for me and my immediate family. But what I can do is I can buy a piece of property and turn it into a vacation rental, in Southern California or wherever I want to. As a matter of fact, I just bought one. There's one that we're working on right now in Anderson, the one I told you about that we're probably going to list here in the next couple of weeks. That was a guy who has a self-directed IRA through a company called Polycomp, which is his custodian. He purchased the property through there and he's had it as a rental for 12 years. He decided that he wanted to sell it. He made $100,000 over the last 12 years in equity. When I bought the property, all of that money, all of that profit flowed back into a self-directed IRA and he didn't pay any taxes. So it's still in his IRA, it's still in his retirement account, but it's growing tax-free just like your 401k would.
Yep.
So really interesting. That's what I would do as well.
Yeah.
And I wish I knew about this. It's like the more you know, right?
Yeah.
I wish I knew about this 6 or 9 months ago when I cashed in my 401k, because it would have saved me, 6 figures in fees and taxes and all of these things. But live and learn.
Yeah.
Live and learn. So that's my thought. And so let's talk about the duplex. So what are your thoughts on the duplex? So whether they cash in or they do the custodian thing, why duplex? Why multifamily?
I feel like there's more potential for growth and income there. I mean, you can buy a single family, but you're not going to get as much in rent and money growth with a single family.
Yeah.
But yeah, buy a single family too. Just do something with it, invest it into real estate.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting. Multifamily does have more potential, right? The other thing that's really interesting is once you start to break into 3 and 4 unit plus, valuation is not particularly taken off of comparable sales. It's taken off of net operating income.
Mm-hmm.
So the interesting thing about the larger multifamily and the commercial multifamily units is that as the rent increases, the net operating income increases, and the value is what we call forced appreciation, which is different. So it's not quite as susceptible to the housing market and the fluctuations of value once you get into the bigger multifamily.
Yeah.
So that's a great point as well. She mentioned silver and gold. I'll admit I'm not like a big silver and gold like fanatic. So I'm not an expert. There's probably a silver or gold guy that, could tell you a lot more, but I did do a little bit of research. Interesting point. The 40-year average on gold is 7%. So the 40-year average on gold is worse than the stock market. Interesting point. But last year it was 0.4%. I don't know about you and your experience, Amanda, but I don't make less than 10% on any real estate transaction I do, period. Like that's my absolute basement is 10% year over year. So as an asset comparative, I would say real estate is better than silver and gold. But if you want to diversify, seems like gold's got a good 40-year average.
Well, I feel like silver and gold is a safe choice.
Sure.
Because real estate, you never know what's going to happen in real estate.
Sure.
But I do think real estate is going to be the best investment you can ever make.
So let's think about it this way. So she didn't ask the question this way, but let's put some words in her mouth because she said she's 63.
I love putting words in people's mouths.
I know. Let's go. She's 63 years old, right? So let's pretend we're 63.
Okay.
And everything that's happening in the market right now, like, do I wait and see what happens? I'm sitting on this money. She's probably pulling it out of the stock market. So it's probably gaining nothing, just sitting in some sort of cash account within her 401k. Do I wait? What's my logic? Like, what do I do right now? I guess maybe a bigger question is like, what do you think's happening in the market overall?
Well, the market's kind of stabilizing. We went through, the last couple of years, really when COVID hit. I feel like this is when it started. Everyone projected it to be, oh, everything's going to tank, everything's going to go down. And it didn't. It was booming.
Bonkers.
And people were, spending $100,000 above asking price for a house. That's a whole nother story that we can get into. But I feel like getting in now is probably the best bet because there's no better time to buy real estate. Even if the market is steady or declining a little bit, now's the time to buy.
I agree with that.
Now's the time.
I've been saying it a lot. I'm sure I didn't coin the phrase, but it's the whole idea of like, don't wait to buy, just buy and wait.
Yes.
Right? Because it's all cycles. You're right. There is real estate recessions. There is real estate dips. There is real estate crashes. Those things happen.
Yeah.
But if you look at it on an aggregate, what, 5-10 year cycles on average?
Yep.
And so I'm 63 years old. If I can get into an asset that's paying me, say 10%, right? So I've got, 10% on 90, what did we say? 95,000. I'm making, $800 a month in cash flow, right? Plus, if I can wait, it doesn't matter what the market does. If I can wait 5 years, 10 years, because by the way, $100,000 is going to buy close to $1 million in real estate, at least 500,000, but you could probably get $1 million worth of real estate. Then you add, a 5 or 10 year inflation on that or appreciation on that at 5% or 3.5% conservatively a year. You've grown your net worth exponentially by just putting it in the asset class and being willing to wait.
Right.
So you're 63. I guess the question you've got to decide is, can you wait 5 or 10 years before you have to realize any exits or gains? But the truth is that if this is your retirement, like, the best thing you can do is to create as much cash flow out of it as possible and try to grow the principal balance as best as possible. Right. So good thoughts. Last question, and then we'll move into some market stuff. Let's see here. What was one? I appreciate your thoughts on investing in yourself first. How do you recommend I start doing that? So I think what they're referencing is, I've said over and over again, if I only had $5,000 or $10,000 or less, and I was getting started out the gate, like, what would I invest even $1,000 into? And I've said over and over and over again, I'd put my first 1,000, 5,000, even 10,000 into myself through courses, masterminds, books, classes, all of the above. And then everybody immediately goes, oh, great, it's another guru selling his e-course. I don't even have an e-course.
You should have an e-course.
Well, maybe I will, so that I can become a guru profiting on my own advice. But I don't even have an e-course, and I believe in this. I've spent tens of thousands of dollars last year on self-improvement, education, masterminds, classes. And I can tell you that I think I just this year already added almost $200,000 to my net worth by doing deals that I didn't even know were possible had I not been in some of these groups. Yeah. So that's what I mean when I talk about investing in myself first. But, like, what are different ways that you invest in yourself? Obviously, in your world, you've got to be constantly learning and growing. How are you investing in yourself? What are some ideas of ways people can invest in themselves?
Well, I think it depends on what their resources are.
Sure.
A lot of people don't have tens of thousands of dollars to do that. So I would say talk to somebody, get connected with somebody that you know who is successful in the world that you want to be in. Connect with them and have them maybe shadow them a little bit and see what they're doing. Have them recommend books, podcasts. There's YouTubes that you can watch to invest in yourself. And
I love that. Yeah. I love that. I specifically love the idea of getting with somebody who's doing what you're doing.
Yeah. It's important, because how else are you going to, you can't grow,
Yeah, it's like a super cringy saying, I know, but it's like your network is your net worth, but it's super true.
Yeah.
And if you don't have cash assets to, to essentially buy into these types of networks, what you do have is time and energy assets. Go bring value to somebody.
Right.
Like, if somebody hits me up, like, and I probably err on the side of, like, really wanting to be helpful, because I just wish people were more helpful to me.
Yeah.
But by and large, like, most people are not, like, super excited to give away their time and energy for free, especially to somebody who might be their competition. Right.
Yeah.
But if you come to me and you're like, hey, I had this happen the other day with a guy in Mount Shasta. He's like, look, I'm trying to get into the game. Like, I see your content, I see your stuff. Can I just come, like, sweep floors in your flips and be around the process? Like, what can I do to bring you value so that I can just be in the environment?
Yeah.
And I'm like, bro, not only do I love that, like, I'm stoked for him because he gets it, but I'm getting a value out of it. And so, of course, I'm going to give my time to that guy. Right.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I even think about, I used to travel. We have a mutual friend, Jake.
We love Jake.
Shout out to Jake Hamilton. I used to travel with Jake quite a bit, and I would help with the tours that he was on, and, did some different, like, ministry related stuff. And he would always try to pay me. And I used to always be like, no, it's cool, man. Because what I indirectly didn't realize at the time that I realize now is that what I got from that was being in the environment.
Right.
Like, my spiritual and emotional health and well-being grew as a result of being in the environment. And I would have paid money to go be a part of that, let alone get offered to be compensated for it. And so that's a great call out, Amanda, is just like bring value. Go find somebody who's been where you want to go, offer them value, and then just sponge your way through their environment.
And that guy that's going to be sweeping floors, you watch him. He's going to be a multi-million-dollar investor.
1,000%. And not because I'm awesome and I'm going to make everybody a millionaire, but because that's the mindset and the hustle that creates wealth. Like I want to show up and be around people that are doing, and I say this too, and again, it's probably cringy, but like, I don't really care what your opinion is if you're on my level. Like at the end of the day, like I'm already here. Like I want to be around the people that have gone places I've never been. Like that's the advice I want. And it doesn't mean that my friends and the people that I'm around suck, but I'm like, right. Like I just don't, I'm like not super stoked on like your opinion of my investment strategy if you're not doing anything different than I'm doing. Right. And so I think that's a great call out. All right, let's jump into some nitty gritty. By the way, I'll just preface this. Amanda and I were joking when we walked in. She's like, "Be nice to me." Like, we're none of us know what's going on in the market. Nobody has a crystal ball. Like, so we'll just preface this by going like, "Hey, what are some opinions? And if at the very least, like, what's your gut say on some of these things?" So let's talk about the market. Right? You're a broker. You've got agents that work for you. You obviously do transactions yourself as well. What are you noticing? What are you experiencing? What's your gut telling you on what's happening in the market today?
Well, I feel like, and this is just my opinion, the market's pretty stable right now. And there's a lot of panic going on right now around interest rates. And they just raised the interest rate again. Which,
yesterday. Yep.
So, but at the same time, back in like the 80s and 90s, the interest rates were astronomical.
2000s even.
Yeah.
I mean, they weren't as crazy. I mean, they weren't like as crazy as the 80s and 90s, but even in the 2000s, we were in like the 6% interest rate space.
Right. But I feel like that is the normal space we're supposed to be in. Not supposed to, but that's the normal space we've lived in. And people have gotten spoiled on the 2s and the 3s and, the 4s. And now that it's 6, there's like panic is ensuing over it. But really, I've lived through a world where the interest rates were 12, 13%. My dad lived through a world where the interest rates were between 20 and 30% in the 80s. And he still bought 90 properties. Yeah,
I think my in-laws bought their first house, I think in the 80s. And if I remember correctly, it was like 17% interest.
Wild.
Nuts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Super crazy.
Yeah, so I feel like our market right now is pretty stable. We have about 540-ish homes on the market, which has, I feel like, become our new normal.
So frame of reference, if you're listening, we live in Shasta County, which is a smaller market, smaller community. So that's why she's referencing. If you're in a bigger market, you probably have like between 2,000 and 3,000 houses on the market or more. But in our market, we have what, 500 and something?
Yeah, about 540-ish.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's pretty stable right now, and sellers are still wanting to sell for a little bit more than what they should. And buyers are struggling a little bit to qualify because of the interest rates changing. But it's the ebb and flow, and the normal market always goes up and down like that. So it'll flatten out and people can qualify again. And
it's a mindset shift, right? Like we were even talking before the show, like a lot of sellers are still stuck in summer of last year. Right. And buyers are still stuck in 2% interest rates, 3% interest rates. And so would you agree with this? I feel like we're having less of a market crash or dip than we're having like a stalemate. Like it feels like we're having a stalemate in the market. The buyers are like, I'm not making this payment for a house I could have gotten for cheaper 6 months ago. And sellers are like, I know that my house is worth this because my agent told me 6 months ago.
Well, also sellers are looking at comparable properties that have sold in their neighborhood. And they're looking at what has sold, 6 months to a year ago. Scott and I went on a listing appointment a few weeks ago. And this guy had it was a fire lot, and he had put a manufactured. It's on a foundation.
And you called me about this one.
No, this is a different one.
Oh, this is a different one.
This is a different one. It was permanent foundation, so, you can get a loan on it, whatever. And all of the homes around, it was an incredibly beautiful community. Everyone had rebuilt, stick built, normal single family homes, huge, beautiful homes between, I would say, $900,000 to $1.5 million.
Wow.
And he's sitting in the middle of it on his manufactured. He wants to sell his property for about $700,000.
Sure.
When in reality, we're like, well, the value's probably around 400 max for this.
If you're lucky.
Yeah, he didn't like that, so he did not hire us. But the mentality of, hey, look what sold around me. This is what I want to sell mine for. This sold a year ago for $1 million. I want to sell mine for $1 million today.
So that's got to be okay. So that's got to be awkward to navigate those conversations at some level. Like, you must be having a lot of those.
It's so awkward for me. I'm a people pleaser, and so for me to walk into and be like, oh, you know what? I'm sorry, your house is worth $400,000, even though the one down the street sold for $1 million.
Yeah.
A year ago. It's a very uncomfortable and awkward situation. But I think truth and honesty and integrity above.
Sure.
My own personal feelings is more important.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, most of the time.
Yeah, right. There's always some gray area.
Yeah.
I live in the gray, for the record. I love the gray. So, I mean, you must be then, like, what are you just doing? Educating people? Because, like, I know that, like, as a real estate investor,
yeah.
I know I can't look at 12-month-old comps.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking max 90 days at this point. Yeah. Like, and I'm no comping pro, but like, just when I do my quick and dirty analysis, I know I got to look 90 days. I got to be more particular on, the comparable year built and lot size and stuff that wasn't as necessary 12 months ago. Yeah. I got to be more specific around. People don't know these things. No. Are they willing to hear it, or are they just completely like, this is what it's worth?
It depends on the individual. Everyone's different. Everyone receives information differently. And this particular situation, he wasn't wanting to be educated in it. He knew what he knew. He knew what he wanted, and that was the end of it.
So would you say, because one of the questions I had for you here, but we can just kind of jump into it, is like, well, I'll just ask the question like this. What are most home buyers and or sellers, so in this case sellers, getting wrong? Like, what are they doing wrong in this market right now?
I don't know if they're technically doing anything wrong. I just think maybe they are not fully aware of the circumstances that are happening.
Oh,
right
you're
now.
So much nicer than me. So much nicer.
Well, I just think if you're walking into a situation and you're not fully aware of what's going on, you're not right or wrong. You're just unaware.
Would a more aggressive Michael Miller approach to that answer be the mistake is that I'm unwilling to be educated?
Yeah.
Okay.
100%.
That feels fair.
Yeah.
Right. If I'm unwilling to learn a new narrative backed in facts, like it's not like you're showing up like the magic real estate fairy with new information. Like it's like, hey man, 30 days ago, a house around the corner that's twice as nice and not a mobile home sold for 500. Like what makes you think you're going to get 7?
Right.
Right. And if I'm not willing to look at that objectively, like I don't deserve to get you to represent me, I would think.
Right.
Right. So that seems interesting. And I wonder how long it will take people, because I've lived in that world, right? We all, as property owners, like we all think that our house is worth more than it is.
Yeah.
And, and as buyers, we think that what we're buying is worth less than it is, right? Like that's just how it naturally, I've been there a million times. You've been down that road with me a million times. I wonder how long it will take people that are really firmly stuck in 2022, early 2022 to really start to adjust.
I think they're starting to adjust now.
Okay.
Yeah. I've got, some clients who wanted to list a little higher, and I strongly advised them not to, but they insisted. So we did. And I mean, not like top, but like it was higher than it should have been. And they're seeing now that their house is sitting on the market and wasting days, and they're trying to move out of the state and they can't. And so I think the realization's coming for a lot of people. It's been, a few months of this now. So I'd give them, 6 months max.
Okay. What's the risk of that? So if we get into a conversation and it's like, let's just say for easy math, like the house is really worth 475, but I want to push it to 5. And you give me all the data and you're like, it's not worth 5, but if that's what you want, right? At some level, you kind of have to accept what the seller wants within reason.
Or I can not take you on.
Of course, yes. But like assuming you got like the threshold is within your level of comfort.
Right.
what is the risk of me putting my house on at 500? Because I'm sure a lot of sellers, I've been this way too, where it's like, well, let's put it on for 500 and see what happens
Right.
and drop it if we have to. But there's kind of some potential like marketing risks and different value risks that come with that, right? What would those be?
Well, for the seller, I feel like the longer it sits on the market, it becomes stale. And people are going to look at that and say, well, this house has been on the market for, 90 days. Why hasn't it sold? There's something wrong with it. And they're not going to want to see it.
Right.
So, it becomes stale on the market. And for agents taking on listings like that, and they're spending money on marketing, it's a waste. You might as well be setting your money on fire, because you can market a property at $500,000 that's worth, $375,000, $400,000 all day long, but you will not get any buyers for it.
What type of marketing? So that's interesting. What type of marketing are you doing as a listing agent?
I do a lot of social media marketing, some magazines. I'm trying to look into getting billboards and, things like that.
They're stupid expensive.
I know. Commercials. I've got a couple of things up my sleeve that I don't want to.
Oh,
yeah. A couple of secrets
All right.
that I've got, under wraps. I've talked to you a little bit about it privately.
Oh, yeah.
But just the standard marketing, mostly social media. But social media marketing gets expensive.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, getting your listing in front of the faces of the people you want it in. And I don't do just local social media. I do statewide.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because if I have a property here that, is on acreage and there's people in other areas that don't have access to our MLS or anything, I want them to see it, So, and I've gotten, buyers that way too, coming up from other areas. Mm-hmm.
That's really interesting. Because I mean, am I weird? I might be weird, but like,
you are weird.
That's okay. Let's go ahead and start with I'm weird. But like, I've always felt this way. Like I've had great agents that I've worked with in Washington. I've worked with you. I've worked with others. But like, I don't know if I've ever had an agent bring me a property I didn't know about. Like other than like off the market deals, right? Like if it's on the MLS, I probably have at least perused it because I'm on that thing all the time. Like we used to always joke, like when Jacqueline would be like decompressing at the end of the day, watching TV or whatever, like I'd be like doom scrolling Zillow. Right. And like, am I weird? Because to me, it's like the idea of having to like pay for social media marketing. I'm like, isn't it putting it on the MLS so it shows up on my Realtor or my Zillow or whatever? Isn't that enough?
Well, sometimes Realtor and Zillow aren't always accurate information.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And I want my clients to know that I am doing everything that I can. So me promoting my listings on social media all over the state of California, I feel like if somebody in, say the Bay Area sees a listing that I have here and they may not be working with an agent, maybe they're not as a researcher like you are, where they're constantly, looking at the listings. They have a full-time job, whatever the situation is. But my listing pops up in front of them as they're scrolling through their Facebook. And they're like, oh, that looks interesting. I'm going to click on that. I'm going to find out more information.
Well, now that you're saying that, because like I've always like been like, maybe I'm weird, but I'm like, to me, the hunt is part of the fun. And so like, I've never really wanted a realtor to do the hunt for me. Like other than going and see, like, I don't have the magic key to go look at the properties, but like the hunt is part of what's fun for me. But I guess for other people that they may not care to do that, which obviously would be a great example.
You're actually one of the only clients that we have that does that.
Really?
Yeah.
So people literally come to you and they're like, these are the parameters of what I want.
Yep.
Find me a house.
Yep.
That blows my mind.
They will also look too. Like they'll also look, but they don't deep dive like you do. I've sent you properties, I think, in other areas of California. Like, yep, seen that. I'm like, how in the world? Like, what are you doing?
Yes,
where are you looking?
I do spend far too much time on. Well, and now I've got MLS access thanks to a friend of mine, and that makes me even worse.
Don't look at me.
I know, not you. That's a really interesting point. So people really aren't scrolling. And now that I think about it, the house we sold in Mill Creek, the one that is now worth, 7 figures, that house actually, I made fun of Jacqueline because when we put it on the market, she shared it on Facebook. And that was like, I mean, this was what, 2011-ish. It was like before Facebook was like really as as mainstream as it is today. And I made fun of her. I'm like, nobody's buying a house off Facebook, Jacqueline.
But they do.
We sold it on Facebook.
I'm telling you.
It was a friend of a friend or a friend of the church person. I can't remember, but it was like somebody that knew Jacqueline's family was like, we're interested. And they still used an agent and they went through the whole thing, but they found our house on Facebook. So it's an interesting point. Very, very interesting. And now I know that I'm weirder than I thought. How do you gauge market health and forecast the future? So like, obviously nobody has a crystal ball, but there is data that we look at. You mentioned one of those metrics earlier, like total listings on market. But what are some of the other metrics that you look at as a real estate professional to kind of determine trends, determine market health, those types of things?
Well, for me, I wake up in the morning and I just feel it what the vibe is.
Oh, wow.
Kidding.
Okay. All right. So you get a market vibe.
Yeah.
Is that like you have to walk outside and bare feet on the, and like touch the ground?
Close your eyes, close to the sun, you know.
Got it. Okay. And then you just know.
Yeah. Today's going to be a good day.
Okay. That makes sense. How was today?
Today's going to be a good day.
Okay. All right. I like it.
I see some fourplexes in our future.
Ooh, we are looking at a couple fourplexes. I'm still a little, probably not as bitter as you are, but I'm still a little bitter about the 9 unit that we lost in December.
I'm very bitter about that.
Yeah, actually. I'm sure you are. Maybe not.
I'm just kidding.
No, I'm sure you are. It's
business.
fair. I know
It's
it is,
fine.
but it sucks when that happens. We had a really great deal on a 9-plex. I couldn't get my investor comfortable, and there was some stuff on the seller side, but we could have overcome it overall. And ultimately, we ended up losing the deal, and that makes Amanda sad because she doesn't get paid, and it makes me sad because it's not in my portfolio. But that's neither here nor there. What other metrics do you, besides looking to the sun, what other metrics do you look at to determine market health?
Just keeping my eyes on the MLS, seeing what the new listings are. How many new listings we have each day is important. How many listings go pending? How many are expired? How many are canceled, withdrawn? So keeping our eyes on that is really important because it gives us a gauge. Okay, today, usually Friday's the biggest day for new MLS listings. So, So today we had 11 new listings and 13 went pending, and 4 canceled. Okay. So just watching that, if we have more new listings coming on the market every day and less listings going pending, we're like, oh shoot, we need to try to see what's going on with our buyers.
Right. So it's an inventory equation, right? Like, and isn't it like months of inventory that you look at? It's like 3 months, like on national markets, like 3 months of inventory is considered healthy. Less than that's considered a seller's market. More than that's a buyer's market. Is that kind of how it works? Yeah.
Right now, our average days on market are about 65.
Okay.
So we have about 2 months of inventory here.
Okay. Interesting. And we're that's also interesting because I've been watching some of the bigger markets like Las Vegas and some markets in the South, and their days on market are actually trending down, which is a really interesting sign.
It's kind of awesome.
Are we seeing that here, or are we still trending up?
No, we're stable. Actually, I did a broker price opinion, I don't know, a few weeks ago, and our average days on market were about 48 then.
Oh wow!
So yeah, trending up a bit, but slowly.
Okay.
So it's not like shocking.
Sure. Yeah. But I mean, everybody's like listening to the media talk about the impending like crash.
Yeah.
And we're looking at the data as investors, as real estate professionals, and we're going like, the data is not showing those trends. Like even with the rate increases, here's my opinion. Tell me this is a good agree or disagree. Okay. My opinion is that we don't actually need, because everybody's talking about right now, well, just buy, and when the Fed lowers the rates, you can refinance then. And sure, that's fine. I'm fine with that, except for the fact that we have no guarantee that the Fed is ever going to lower rates again. To your earlier point, we're actually at normal rate levels, not elevated rate levels, historically speaking.
Right.
But my opinion is this: we don't actually need the Fed to lower interest rates. We just need them to say that they're going to stop increasing them. And we will see sellers get comfortable or get motivated, buyers get back into the market. Like I believe that the answer to really fully stabilizing and then starting to see an uptick into 2024 is when Powell basically says, hey, we've got inflation under control. We're done raising rates. Like this is our new floor. What are your thoughts?
100% agree.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause I don't look, I mean, I hope I'm wrong, cause like I would benefit. I don't think we're going back to 3% interest rates in our lifetime.
I don't know if it's in our lifetime, because I feel like it goes in a 10-year up and down, like ebb and flows 10 years.
Back to 3% though?
You don't know that.
Well, of course I don't know that. And I hope that they do, because Lord knows I'm going to friggin' refinance everything. But like at the end of the day, like we've never had rates that low before, right? So historically speaking, so I'm like 10 years. I mean, if we look 10 years back, we were way higher than that.
Yeah.
So that's why I look at it and I go like, to your point, like we have to get comfortable with the new reality more than, which is why I kind of cringe at the advice of buy now and refinance later, because it implies like, who cares if your payment's a little too much now? Cause you'll just, and then people are going to get screwed.
Yeah.
So I'm not into that advice, but I really don't think we're ever going to see 3% interest rates again. That's my 2 cents. And I hope I'm wrong.
I hope you're wrong too.
I know you do. All right. Couple more and then we'll wrap up here. I'm a new buyer. If I'm, maybe it's my first time buy or I'm new to a market, what do I need to do to prepare myself to buy?
Talk to a lender.
First and foremost. Okay.
Yeah, you can tell me all day long that you want a 4-bedroom, 3-bathroom house on, 12 acres, and you can spend up to $800,000. If you don't talk to a lender to verify that information, then it's a waste of everyone's time.
Okay, so I call my bank, and what do I do?
Say, hi, I'm looking to buy a house and I want to get pre-qualified.
Okay, and they're just gonna tell me what to do, walk me through it?
Absolutely, yeah. They'll take your loan application, they'll look at your income, they'll look at your previous tax returns, see where you're at financially, look at your debt to income ratios, and see what can you afford. So
what's a debt to income ratio? I know you're not a mortgage broker, but
actually, I try to stay so far away from loans, which honestly, it's not to my benefit. I realize I need to know more about the stuff, but I'm like, oh, that's somebody else's job.
That's fair. That's fair.
So debt to income is how much debt you have compared to how much income you have.
Sure.
And there's some sort of math calculation in there.
That's great.
I don't know how to math that.
That's the best answer I've heard so far, which is there's a calculation involved somewhere in there that comes to a number that matters somehow.
It does matter. Yeah.
Yes. So I'll weigh in because I have a mortgage background and say that debt to income.
Why would you put me in that
I
position?
know because I thought it'd be fun. Well, because we're not here to hear from me. We're here to hear from you. So debt to income ratio is one of, if not the most critical components to getting approved for a loan. And essentially your debt to income ratio is a percentage. For most lenders, ideal is like 40% of your total gross income. So if I make $10,000 a month, it'd be $4,000 minus all of my debt expenditures. So my car payment, my credit card payment, my student loan payment, any debt payments that I have on my credit. So 40% of my income minus those debt payments is the maximum amount that I can qualify for in terms of a monthly payment. Right. And then I use that number they have another calculation that they use that basically reverse engineers my maximum payment into my maximum mortgage amount. So that's the math of a debt to income ratio. And I love that answer so much, Amanda. That's awesome. So I go to the bank. I figure out my DTI, debt to income ratio. I figure out my credit score. I actually apply before I even start looking for a house, you think?
Yep.
Okay, good. Because I want to know what I actually can get.
Right.
And just caveat, because I've been in this place before, it will save you a lot of heartache.
It really will.
Because people they think they can spend $800,000, so they search for $800,000 homes, fall in love with these homes, and then find out they qualify for $600,000. And now all the 600,000 homes look like trash. Yeah. And the reality is if you would have started there, you probably would have been just as stoked because it's your house, So I apply, I get pre-qualified. The bank gives me a letter that tells me how much I'm qualified for, and I bring that to you. Yep. And then what?
And then we start looking at some properties.
Okay.
So it's as simple as that. I mean, you tell me what you qualify for and what you want in your home, and we can go out and start looking the same day.
So I'm dealing first. The reason why we're dealing with the mortgage or the bank, the broker or the bank first, is because they're handling all of the money terms, right, to help you understand what type of search to make for me.
Yes.
So they're going to advise me on down payment.
Yep.
They're going to advise me. What if I go to the bank? And again, I know you're not a broker, but you've dealt with many of these. What if I go to the bank and find out my debt to income ratio is too high, or my credit score is too low? What then?
Well, then you have some goals to set for yourself and getting your credit score higher. There's a bunch of credit recovery places that you can go through and use. I don't recommend I don't have any companies to recommend.
Sure.
But
probably my broker will.
Your lender will, yeah.
So that's another good thing to know is people sometimes get scared. They hear go apply for a loan and they immediately get scared because they know they've got credit crap. the lenders are part of the pre-qualification process, is them coaching you through
Right.
getting your credit to a place where you can qualify.
And most of them have simulators too, saying if you paid this off, or if you paid this down, this is what your credit score would be, and this is how soon you could qualify.
Mhm.
So that's very helpful too.
Yeah, I mean, I can say like, so I have great credit and I make a fair amount of money, but I still, because I'm a an investor, so my cash goes out, my debt goes up, my debt goes down, my cash comes. It's like always this revolving door. My lenders, sometimes I have to go to them and they look at my whole thing if I'm going conventional, and they'll literally say, "Hey, I need you to put this money here and this money there."
Yep.
And then we can pull it back out of here. And they actually literally help me strategize on how to get my deal done.
Yeah.
So that's part of the lender process, is they coach you through that.
And that's why it's so important to reach out to them first.
Yeah. And find a good one, right? Because
Absolutely.
I heard a story recently. Somebody in Tennessee. It was somebody in Tennessee went to a lender and they wanted to buy a duplex and owner occupy one side and rent out the other
Nice.
side. Great idea. But the lender told them that in Tennessee, that the FHA and conventional requires a minimum of 15% down in the state of Tennessee. And I'm like,
FHA did?
that's what they said.
Interesting.
And that was my response. And I'm like, and I've learned enough in this game to not like just fire off my mouth like, you're wrong, and blah, blah, blah. But I was like, this ain't my first rodeo. That doesn't add up. And the FHA isn't a state agency. It's a federal agency. So I sent off just while we were sitting there hanging out, I sent off a couple text messages to some contacts I have in Tennessee that are in the mortgage business. And we found out that it's unequivocally wrong. You can put 3.5% down up to 4 units.
Yep.
And the FHA scales the FHA loan limits up based upon the number of units. So if the limit is 550 on a single family, it might be 900 on a fourplex.
Right.
Depending upon the limits. And you can put 3.5% down, occupy one of the units, rent the rest of them out, and that qualifies as an owner-occupied FHA loan, even in Tennessee. And so what we found is that the lender, I don't know if the lender was just an idiot or if there was some other motivation, or they were a non-QM lender, something weird. But like, my point of that story is you got to find somebody who knows how to help and knows your situation.
And knows what they're doing.
Yeah, because they're not all created equal.
Yes.
They don't all have access to the same loan products. And, frankly, they're not all equally passionate about helping you get to your goals. So, all right, let's do, let's wrap up. I got a couple fun questions, and then I want to finish with an agree or disagree.
Okay.
Kind of rapid fire, but a few fun questions. You kind of answered this earlier, but I'd love to just say it for the record. What's the most amount of money you've ever made in 1 year on real estate?
Oh my gosh.
Estimate.
Oh my gosh. I'm gonna say 400.
400,000.
Yeah.
Awesome. Least amount you've ever made in a year on real estate.
32,000.
Ouch.
That's my first year.
That's a swing.
Yeah.
That's a swing. Maybe if you don't have one quick, that's okay. You can pass, but I'd love to hear your most horrific client story.
Oh my gosh.
And it better not be me.
Well, see you later.
That's okay. It can be me. It's fine.
No, it's not you. Okay. Michael Miller. Do I have the story for you?
Okay.
I was approached by a client who was also an agent in an outside area, not locally. And this was a few years ago. She had 2 properties here in town that she wanted to sell. And she tried to do like a little mini flip on each of them. And anyway, that's beside the point. So I took the listings and she's like, okay, we'll do it at a 2% commission.
Okay.
And I was like, oh, okay.
So normal commission is what?
So usually between 4 and 6%.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, so 4%. She's like, no, 2.
Oh, she wanted 2% total.
I was like, hold up, I don't work for free.
Right.
So I ended up negotiating with her to do 4%. So 2% for me, and then 2% for the buyer's agent. And then she wanted 25% of my commission as a referral fee because she is an agent / owner. I was like, whatever. There's 2 properties. It's fine. So I took the listings, and the moment that we signed the contract, she turned into a little nightmare, like a literal nightmare. She was calling me at midnight, 1 a.m., asking me questions that didn't matter at the time. Like, this could have waited till 8 o'clock in the morning the next morning. And one of the properties there was 2 deaths on that property.
Deaths?
Yeah.
Like people died?
Yeah.
Okay.
like violently too. Like it was,
Oh,
and you have to disclose that if it's within 3 years.
I know. I
And
always say if something looks suspect when I walk through a property, I'm like, I don't want to know anything because then I have to
you
disclose it.
have to know.
No, I don't have to know if nobody told me.
It's a legal requirement that you know if it's happened within 3 years. 3 years and 1 day, you're fine.
Yeah, but if nobody tells me, I don't know.
Okay. Well, anyway, so there are 2 deaths on this one property, and you have to disclose that. So I put that
Sure.
in, the private remarks for the agents to see, and it sat and sat and sat. And this was at a time when the market was just also kind of the same, where everything kind of sits a little bit.
Sure.
And then the other one, very cute property. She did not do a great job flipping it. I mean, you could see, the details were not great. And so that property we had, I think, listed for $225. Very cute property. Tiny place. We ended up getting an offer on it by one of the local agents, full price. FHA. They weren't asking for any credit. Usually with FHA offers,
Sure.
they ask for, closing costs and whatever. Nothing. It was a very clean, very nice offer. And she came back and she's like, I said, oh, we have an offer. And she's like, what is it? I said, full price. She's like, counter, I want $50,000 more.
What?
And I'm like, this buyer's a single mom buying this house because her kid goes to school right behind it. Like she doesn't have a car and she wants to buy this house so her kid can walk to school safely. She's like, I don't care. Counter this offer for $50,000 more.
What in the world?
You're fired. I ended up firing her. I'm like, I'm not doing that.
Did she find another listing agent?
No, she ended up holding on to the property for about another year. I think she might have rented it out.
Uh-huh.
And then she found some out of area broker that does just MLS listings. They'll list something for you on the MLS and then charge a fee for it. And then she ended up handling it herself. I think she ended up selling it for like $200,000.
How much anxiety did you have having to deal with her?
I feel like she was an integral part of me having a stroke.
Oh, wow.
Like, I feel like that was the start of like the blood pressure going up.
Okay. Well, we didn't talk about the fact that you had a stroke and you're still a boss hoss, but we don't have time for that today. But that's an incredibly awful story as well.
Yeah.
Okay. One more question and then a quick rapid agree or disagree. If you could start it all over again, business, finance, all of it, what would you do different?
Oh gosh. Business, I feel like I wouldn't do anything different because it's brought me to where I am today.
Okay.
I've made several mistakes.
Sure.
And I've had to restructure a couple of times my business in the last few years. But I've learned from it all and I would not change anything.
That's great. I love that answer.
Financially, I wish I had known how to manage finances because growing up, my dad was wealthy, and I didn't realize that money was as valuable as it is. And my dad used to always say, it's just money, I can make more. And so growing up thinking that, like, I feel like it set me up with a positive mindset towards money. I just didn't know how to handle money.
Right.
And getting married and, being young and married and making all of that money in the beginning, I didn't know how to handle that. And I wish I had educated myself before I had myself in a position of having this money and not handling and managing it well.
That's great. I love that. All right. Couple quick agree, disagree, and then we'll wrap up.
Okay.
Housing market is going to crash 2008 all over again.
Disagree.
Biden is a cyborg.
Agree.
We're in the middle of a recession.
That's a hard one. Pass.
Recession is coming.
Oh, gosh.
You can pass.
Pass.
Cash is king.
Oh, I'm neutral on that one. I don't know what to think about it.
Yeah, I think cash is trash, but that's just my opinion. The election was stolen. Just kidding. Don't answer it. AI is going to take over the world.
Agree.
Okay.
Happily.
All right. It is easier to make more money than it is to save or shave it from your budget. It is easier to make more money than it is to save it or shave it from your budget.
Disagree.
Okay. Interesting. Well, Amanda.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
It was fun.
It was really fun.
We'll do it again. Next time we'll talk about strokes.
Okay.
What happened to your dad's real estate empire.
Okay.
We'll hear more client horror stories.
We should have my dad in on a call.
Oh, can we do that?
Absolutely. He'd love it.
That would be super fun. We'll do that. Actually, we could do it as a 3-way Zoom because we're setting up Zoom podcasts coming
Perfect.
soon.
He would love that.
Hey, appreciate everybody listening in. If you like what you hear, check out, and if you're in Northern California, check out the Edens Group for your upcoming buy or sale
Or invest.
And you can DM me too if you want to get into the investment space. But that's it for today's episode. Thanks so much.